We can also create ways for children to practice. You mentioned the peace table. We can create ways for children to practice that conflict resolution.
Yeah.
And, we don't have time to get into that whole gateway of positive discipline in this session right now. But if anyone is out there and they're wondering, like, I'm struggling with this, where do I go with actually resolving the conflict? Positive discipline, gentle discipline that is your pathway. But in the Montessori context, we can also use all kinds of lessons to teach children how to work together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if you look in any of our lessons, I know you've got
a challenge.
Okay, a challenge. I know you've got the lower L ones right there. I've got our primary curriculum. No,
I have
vice versa.
Yeah.
Here's practical life from the primary curriculum. I've got our lower L curriculum. And I'm going to pull one out too. I'm actually going to just yank one out.
Okay. Well, I've got mine.
Okay, I've got mine. I pulled mine from level 5 life science.
I also pulled life science.
You did? Oh my gosh, we're really in sync. Okay,
yes.
Well, read me one of your lessons.
Parts of a flower.
Parts of a flower.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, so this is a level 3 from the Green Grass Grows. Parts of a flower.
Well, how could we use that lesson to teach children how to be better siblings with each other?
Now, are you talking metaphorically?
No,
or?
I'm talking about literally with that lesson. How
Well,
could we,
you would
how
have
could
a
we
limited-
turn that into a collaborative lesson is what I'm asking.
So parts of a flower could be taught with parts cards, which have a puzzle-like quality. And in fact, we saw an example of siblings completing a categorizing activity. It wasn't parts cards, but it was a categorizing activity together. You had an older brother, I think, and a younger brother. We saw a video of this recently, one of our members.
Okay.
And do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, it was very cute. And they were working together. And mom was there kind of guiding it.
Yeah.
And she would hold the card up. Oh, I know which one it was. It was from our pets unit. It was the cat. And then you would find a sentence. The cat is hungry. And then you would find a command. Feed the cat.
Oh, yes.
All right, and so
That's
the brothers
right. I do remember that now. It
worked
was
together to solve the puzzle.
I think it was a photo, not a video.
No, definitely a video.
It was a video?
Yeah, because we saw them working together. And I thought it was a beautiful, so they're different. I think they were different ages.
Yeah.
Well, an older one and a younger one. But it was beautiful to see them working together. So I think that's an example of how you would bring kids together to work together collaboratively on a project. And actually, that is our second tip. You would create collaborative work activities for them to practice these grace and courtesy ideas, right? So you're instilling them with a grace and courtesy mindset, and there are specific lessons that you can give them to help reinforce that. And of course, as you were saying, there could be even more than the ones that we would include in our curriculum, because grace and courtesy really is just sort of like how we conduct ourselves in polite society in order to, help with social cohesion and to feel good about ourselves and to practice good hygiene and all those sorts of things. Right? So as they're internalizing that, you would then give them opportunities to practice, and those opportunities to practice could be pulled right from your curriculum. So this is where we would say this is kind of goes back to the premise of multi-age teaching and why it's so great, because it gives you a chance to bring different ages and stages together and have them collaborate and practice not only the academic concept, but the collaborative, loving, graceful, courteous process.
Okay, that was actually a good one. So parts of a flower, you could maybe get one flower out and work with both children to name the parts together.
Yep.
And identify them. It's a perfectly fine lesson to do. It was kind of like a random example that we pulled that one out. What I pulled out was botanical nature journaling.
Oh, okay.
Which also is a life science activity.
And
It's
that's
in
for an
level
older
5.
one, right? Yeah.
It's in our lower elementary curriculum, but is there any reason why you couldn't also have your younger child doing botanical nature journaling?
So
Absolutely no reason.
how would you bring Grace or the collaboration to life with this journaling? Because journaling is, well, not isolated,
No.
but solitary.
It does feel like it's a solitary activity. Well, what came to mind was maybe the concept of like a journal itself is kind of a solitary activity. But I remember doing a lot of projects with our 2 kids where they would each journal something or draw something, and then I would draw something, and we would make as many pages as we would want, and we would staple it together to make a book together. Mm-hmm. And so what it would look like is, one page would be, a book about plants, by, and then the 3 of our names. And then the next page would be one that maybe our oldest child drew with like a sentence about the plant that he found while we were out in nature. Then we turn the page and there would be like a page of scribbles where I had asked our youngest what he wanted to say about his plant. And he might have said something like, my plant has teeth and eats flies. All right. But you can't tell. It's like a big scribbled mess. And then you turn the next page and then maybe it's my example. And we just make a whole bunch of pages and staple them together. And we actually did a lot of that when they were in this particular age group. And I think that it's teaching your oldest. Now, if your oldest doesn't want to participate in this own thing, they want to make their own book, that's fine. But it is an example of a really easy way that you could make a collaborative project while everybody retains their own individual piece of it that they're contributing.
Yeah,
like you're contributing something to the group project, and you set it up ahead of time. Yeah. Like we together are going to create a book or a map or a game or whatever it is, a project that you're creating, and then each person brings something to the table.
That's right. And I think what you might hear is the older brother say he ruins it, or the older sister say she ruins it, right? Like, oh, I don't want them to mess up my journal.
Right.
Like I worked real hard on it, and that's understandable. This goes back to what are the sources of sibling conflict, and some of it is that sometimes the child just needs to feel that their work needs to be respected, and they don't understand why they have to share it. It's important to them, and in those cases, it might not be the right time to introduce that. No, we're going to do a collaborative lesson. However, it often is a good idea to at least approach it with the older child, and this goes to like grace and courtesy is really, you need to think of it as an academic subject in itself. It's not just niceties or disciplinary, a discipline goal, right? It's a mindset. And so coming to the older child beforehand, as you said, and say, I want to do this natural journal together, or we're going to do this travel journal, or whatever it is, nature journal. We're going to go to the botanical gardens, and I want you guys each to make your own, and we're going to put them together. And your brother, he can't write the same way that you can, but he really, really loves participating. And I think it'd be so nice to have one book for all of it together. And if you set the right context, you can create a situation where the older brother can start to feel really proud of the leadership that he feels with his younger sibling. And that, especially if they're in that lower L, that second plane, can be super empowering because they're in an age of ethics and moral decision making, and that sense of the big brother has something to share and loves and protects his little brother or sister is really, really powerful. That's an expression of love that's appropriate for that age.
This is bringing back memories, actually. I think humor is a really important tool that we can use in this. It doesn't work for all children, but I remember doing a lot of, we would, our oldest and I would look at the page of scribbles that the youngest had just done. And we would kind of wink to each other like, oh, yes, this is a picture of the Venus flytrap. I see it. It's right here. And then our oldest would join in the fantasy aspect of it and say, oh, yes, are these the teeth? I think I see one of the teeth right here. And the youngest would just like puff up with, pride and just be like, yeah, that is one of the teeth. And I think that those kind of invitations to give compliments or to, maybe even if it's not just like, I like it or I love it, it's like a descriptive praise type of
Which
compliment.
is the way praise should be, for adults to children as well.
Yeah, I think that creating those opportunities for your youngest to interact with your oldest work, and give feedback on it, positive feedback or acknowledgement of the hard work, and so you're right, like in order to set the stage for those kind of positive collaborative experiences, it was helpful to talk first to the oldest child, usually our oldest, who in our context is 3 years older and was well aware, of the difference in skills,
I didn't always want to share.
Yeah. And so, but talking ahead of time, like getting a game plan, like, we made this book, and I want you to know, your younger brother, he worked real hard on his, and we want to make sure that he really feels like we see his hard work. And just saying something like that, not saying, so you better be nice, or so, we're going to give him compliments even though you think it's, terrible. None of that. We just like set the stage positive, like we're going to have this experience. And yes, I know he doesn't draw like you. You know what a Venus flytrap really looks like, right? And the oldest will be like, well, yeah. Then I'll be like, but his motor skills are still developing. And it's just being really honest about the differences there. Now, would this work with twins? No. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. Even as the kids get older and
the collaborative work definitely can.
Yeah, and as they get older and their differences change, I think even with twins, it's natural to have a kind of a sense of rivalry between the two.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's where
and also maybe different skill levels.
Totally. So what I'm hearing that I want to underscore from you that goes with the concept of grace and courtesy, there's no guile there. Like you're not denigrating the younger's work in order to win favor with the older or to puff him up. What makes him feel good is that he's being invited to share in an adult experience. You're acknowledging that he has developed a skill that is better in some, like objectively better, right? He can draw the shape of the flytrap more accurately to nature without comparing him to his brother as being worse or superior or inferior. Just rather, we're together, you've got something here, he's going to get there too, we're really excited, you couldn't do this at one point either, but we're all learning together, and there's no trickery or guile or deceit. It's or an attempt to play it cool or something, or bribe. There's no bribery, there's no negative attention. And so that's a kind of a piece to it, like inviting the older child into that experience will be empowering.
Yeah, this example was a bit esoteric. We just randomly picked things from the curriculum to talk about how we could make it a collaborative activity. But I'm going to give some really concrete ways that are probably a bit easier to think of. And that is like, think about practical life activities that kids could do together, whether it's raking leaves, although that's kind of thought of as outdated these days, isn't it? Like you're supposed to mulch the leaves and then let them decompose. I think raking leaves is still fun, right? You make
I don't
big
know anything
piles.
about raking leaves.
But like working together to do things, like working outside together. You each, you take the wheelbarrow this time full of the heavy stuff. Now it's your sibling's turn. Like we're working together to create something as a family unit or as a partnership. And you'll see your children do this on their own as well. Children do it naturally. They go to the playground, and it's so funny to watch them because if there's no obvious work to be done, they will make work. They will load up their dump trucks and start hauling them from one side of the sandbox to the other. And you're like, as a school teacher, when we had sandboxes, it was like, this happened all the time. Sand was constantly being transported from one side of the playground to the other. Why? Because it's something that you can do together and it feels good and it's sensory. But you'll see children kind of organizing each other, their peers and their siblings to make sure that all of this stuff gets all over here and we're all working together to make sure that it happens. And it's great. Those are just natural collaborative activities.